since yesterday. So if I completely failed this lesson, I blame Lou. It's all his fault. Just kidding. We'll be fine. Alrighty. See, is there anything on here worth hiding? No, I think we're good. I don't think I have anything secret today. Cool. I'm going to go ahead, go into my terminal, and we're going to go CD back into that folder from yesterday, which I think it was advanced, that one. I'm going to open it in code. Okay, I did that part fast. Is anybody confused about that part of things?
Yeah, actually, I was wondering how you get to just type in a couple of letters of the file name and get it to shoot over to the whole one.
Ready? This is a long answer. Tab.
Just tab? Okay.
Yep, and tab is a great habit to get into because if it's wrong, right? Guess what? It won't complete. So that means you're maybe in the wrong folder or something like that. So if you get in that, and by the way, there's a huge thing with programming. If you take time to work on your workflow, you're going to run into less errors. So like just to give you an example of like how tab can actually stop you from, coming into errors, not just, be like a way to do something a little faster, right? It also prevents errors. Let's kind of look at this. Let's say I'm CD'd right now. I want to CD into my folder, right? So if I type in CD and then A, oh shit, nothing's popping up. Why? Let me think about why nothing's popping up when I press tab. Oh, right, because I'm already CD'd into it. So now because I'm in this workflow where I press tab, even if my eyes weren't over here, I would be suggested to look over there based off of what didn't come up when I pressed tab. Does that make sense? Another thing that happens is, does anybody know what this master means? What's the difference of when I'm here and then when I CD out? Oh, it doesn't say master anymore. Does anybody know what that means?
You're in your current directory? Current file?
I think there's like a keyword here that I'm looking for.
Does it have to do with GitHub?
It does have to do with GitHub.
Is it the branch?
Yep, it tells you your branch on GitHub. Do I expect y'all to really know what a branch is on GitHub right now? No. But something worth noting about how this ties into workflow is, hey, sometimes you won't be inside of a GitHub repo and you'll be like, what the fuck is going on? I don't understand this, but because I have this tooling available, right? Now I know, okay, I'm inside of a GitHub repo, right? Does that make sense? So like thinking about this tooling that's here for you, putting just like, you don't have to put a whole lot of thought into it. You should be thinking more about the code that you're writing, but definitely like observe is what I would say. Casual observance of the things that you're doing that make you work a little bit faster and hone in on those. How do we feel about that? Make sense? Cool. I'm going to type in clear, which just clears everything from my terminal so it's not as ugly. And where did we leave off? I have no idea. I don't remember. So anybody remember? I think all I need to do is really look for a dot each. And I'm pretty sure this is where we left off. Hint, hint. A lot of the times you can get away without using a dot each. A lot of the times you can get away with that.
John, could we go through a dot each method? Because that's what's messing me up.
Yeah.
The Hashketball.
Okay. So the way I think of the purpose of a dot each method is, do y'all like for loops? Okay, so depending on the language you've been in, it probably looks something like this. For some item in an array of items, right? Do stuff. And to be honest, this is just a different syntax for a for loop is what a dot each is, right? The key thing to note about a dot each versus like a dot map, a dot find, a dot reduce. A dot each does nothing functionally but iterate over all of these things. Okay? You can, but honestly, if you want to write good code, you shouldn't really be returning an each or setting a variable equal to an each. Let's play around with this for a second.
Hey, John, I just got to have a quick question.
Mhm.
Is there a way so like when you use a for loop, you can do like for I comma j, so you can compare two variables during a for loop. And like let's say you're comparing two sentences and you want to see like, hey, is every letter the exact same as it goes down? Does that make
I don't
sense?
know that you could do for I comma j. If you can, that's not a syntax that I'm familiar with.
Because I think you can do it in like JavaScript and stuff. And so
You
for ij, and then you put
no,
like,
no. In JavaScript, there's 3 different syntaxes, and none of them are where you can specify 2 variables at the same time. What you
oh
could
really?
do, yeah, what you could do, and this, I think you could do something like this in Ruby, but you can do for like I in array. You could do for I of array, and then you could also do for like I equals 0. I is, and then specify the conditions of I. That's the other way you could do it. We're not going to go into that today, though.
Okay, yeah.
But in general, you can't just specify I and j on one line. You can do nested for loops, so that way you have like a for I, and then you're iterating through that, and then you have a for loop inside of that. Let's not talk about for loops today, because we're actually trying to wean you off of those as much as possible right now. Okay? These gems, they're called gems for a reason, because they're fucking valuable, right? So we want to use them when we can. So dot each is basically the way that I think about what a dot each though is, what do you do in a for loop, right? Usually in a for loop, what you'll do is you'll get some variable just like this. Maybe you'll make an array, maybe it'll be a sum, and then what you'll do is you will change this array, right, inside of the dot each, right? So you'll say, oh, let me change this thing when I'm inside of the dot each. But the thinking process of these enumerables is actually different. The thinking process is usually with these enumerables, what you're going to say is some value is equal to some array with some dot some enumerable. And this is kind of the thought process behind enumerables. Is an enumerable creates a transformed version of a data structure. In Ruby, we can do it over hashes and we can do it over arrays, but the whole purpose of these enumerables is that we are transforming something. Does that make sense? So that means that this whole value to the right of some value winds up actually equaling something different based off of the enumerable that I plug in. Now with a dot each, that's the exception to the rule. If I do a dot each here, does anybody know what some value will wind up equaling?
Some array.
Yeah, it will be the same. Some value will actually just equal some array. Now, in the process, I will have looped over every term in some array, but I didn't actually change the value of some array. Does that make sense? Cool. I'm gonna ask Pong, can you say that back to me? Like, since you're the, I think it was you that asked the question, or
Yeah, it was me.
So spit out to me what dot each does versus the other enumerables and how we use them. Do just like your best explanation that you can.
So dot each iterates through your are we talking about the code that you just wrote, like some value equals some array?
Let's say I do some array dot each.
So the dot each iterates through some array, and then it
what does some array, what does this whole term become after that, after it iterates through all of it?
some value. I don't
Nope,
know.
that's what the variable is that we're using to store it, right? But what does this whole term evaluate to is the question. Because it does evaluate to something in Ruby. Really good question, by the way.
Does it evaluate to an array?
Yeah, what array specifically will it evaluate to?
I don't know. I'm lost. I don't know.
Dot each doesn't change anything about the array that it operates on.
Okay.
That's the key here, is that a dot each doesn't actually change the array. It just iterates over it. So yes, you can iterate over this array and do things with it, but at the end of the day, this whole thing just becomes some array. It just stays the same. It doesn't change anything. If this array was 1, 2, 3 before, I'm iterating through 1, 2, 3, and it stays as 1, 2, 3 afterwards. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does now.
Awesome. I'm also going to go deeper. What I figured was we'll do this lesson, we'll do the enumerables lesson, and we're just going to drill the shit out of enumerables today. So if I don't, I might skip over a little bit of slowing down in this just for the sake of getting some more code refactor in. But always feel free to ask the question. Now let's just go ahead and do a dot map here. Now let's say I do a dot map and I say for each element in the array, I want to return, I don't know, element times 2. Cool. All right, sweet. Now, what does this whole thing evaluate to? If my sum array is 1, 2, 3.
A new array that'll be multiplied by 2, so 2, 4, or 6.
Exactly. Now, what happens if I just take this? I have the same exact block here, but instead I call this a dot each. What would
It's going
sum
to
array? What?
It's going to return 1, 2, 3.
It's
on
just
some
going to
array.
return 1, 2, 3 because it doesn't change anything about the array that it operates on. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. All right, I'm going to ask for one more check for understanding on that. Matt, give me an explanation of what's going on there. So what will this return right now? If sum array is 1, 2, 3, what will some value become?
1, 2, 3
Nice. And if I change this to a dot map, what does it become?
would be 2, 4, 6.
Beautiful. Okay, cool. Sweet. All right, so now that we kind of have that understood, can anybody think of how we could refactor this player numbers? So what is it that I want to do? Let's describe what's going on here. Ultimately, the thing that I want is an array of player numbers, right? And what I'm giving it is an array of players. So what kind of iterable do you think I might use on this? What kind of enumerable do you think I might use on this? Marnie. Oh, it looked like you were going to unmute anyways. That's convenient as hell.
Yeah, I was gonna say filter,
Why filter?
because you just want to filter it down to essentially one thing.
Okay. Do I want to though? What do I want here? I want a list of numbers, right?
You
Dot
want,
find.
so I'm sorry, you want a list of, I was
I
thinking
wanna-
one player number.
All
You
right. I want to. So what I'm doing is I'm getting all the player numbers for a team.
Okay, so then I think you want to map it.
Beautiful. I want to map it because I want to take. Let's look at one of the players, for example. I want to take one of these players, and instead of returning this whole hash, I just want to return the number, right? That's it. I want to take this whole hash, just return the number, and I want to do that for all of these, right?
Wouldn't
So now-
filter work too, though?
Would dot filter work? What does dot filter do?
Doesn't it give you like an array of all the items that satisfy some condition?
Yeah, so let's say I'm grabbing my players, right? What would I want to filter out of this array?
Oh, sorry, I got confused. Okay, I
No,
understand.
that's good. I'm glad you asked that question. So
Okay.
there's nothing that I want to filter out here. I just want to change all of them.
Right. It's the
Does that
same
make
number
sense?
as what we originally had, right?
Exactly. So that's why I want to use a map. These are great questions. I really appreciate the engagement y'all are giving me. Sweet. Awesome. So what we're going to do here is now we're going to change this to a map. And you know what? The truth is we're probably not going to need a dot push because dot push kind of sounds like a side effect that I would be doing inside of maybe like a for loop or something like that. And you know what? We don't want to do that. And guess what? Also, we don't need to create a variable for numbers array because this whole thing is going to evaluate to numbers array anyways, right? So now what I can do is I can take my player numbers, and what I can do is I can say, who knows? First of all, here's a good question. Should this be called index?
No.
Why?
No. Confusing.
Because it's the like player data basically.
Exactly. So what would you change that to?
I would be lame and call it player data.
Player data? Cool.
Yeah.
I like that. But since we have players up there, I'm just going to do player, and I think that
Oh
should be
yeah.
fine.
Okay.
But you could do player data. I would not have difficulty reading that if you wrote it that way. So I'm just going to do it this way.
So that's just like individual player info.
Yep. So I'm going to call this for each player. What am I going to return here?
You want to return the player numbers.
So how do I do that?
So you would take the player, and if the player is equal,
So I would say if player is equal to
team name,
okay. End there.
and then do player. Or could you just say, yeah, do
Let's pop in a binding.pry inside of here. Okay. All right. Before we do a binding.pry, I want to just go over how map works for a second. Let's see. Hey, look at that laptop. Nobody buy it. All right. I'm going to go to a REPL real quick. We're going to go to Ruby. Bam. So one thing that changes with all these enumerables is what you return and what the thing that you return does. Okay. That's kind of like the thing that defines how you use these variables. Let's do a really simple use case with a map. 1, 2, 3. And we want to just double this thing. Okay. So I am not used to not using Vim. I'm going to say, I wonder if there's a way for me to change that. Let's see. Keybinds! Oh, I didn't know I could do that. Oh, that warms the cockles of me heart. Sweet. So now that I'm here, I could call this array equals that. Oh, I have to do something else. Hang on a minute here. Let me, this will take but a moment. I just have to do that. Bam. 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 Sorry. This has nothing to do with this class, and just completely ignore it because it's just extra information that you don't need. All right, good. We're good now. Sweet. So here's my array, and I want to take this array and I want to just double it. So I'm just going to say doubled array. Whoops. Equals array.map. And for now, I'm going to do a do for each number, and we'll do an end, okay? The thing that I return in here is the thing that each element becomes. So every time I'm looping through, I'm getting either number 1, number 2, or number 3. And the thing that I return is whatever it becomes. If I return, I like cheesy poofs, and then I put my doubled array. Nick, what do you expect me to see when I run this?
I expect you to see I like cheesy poofs I like cheesy poofs. I like cheesy poofs.
You just sang a song from South Park. That was beautiful.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cartman stuff.
And that's exactly what we get. If I put a 1 in here, right? What would you expect me to get?
111.
Cool. And if I put, how would I get the doubled? If I just want to double all of them, how would I do that?
Number times 2.
Yep. So now, bam. Okay, let's make this a little more complex now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make this an array of objects. I like cheesy poofs. And then maybe we'll do, let's see. Oh yeah, I know exactly what we're doing. So you like cheesy poofs. And then, whoops. Oops. Without cheesy poofs. Yeah, let's do that. We'd be lame. Cool. So now let's go ahead and I want to instead go through this thing and I want to take an array of hashes and make an array of messages. How am I going to do that now? What am I going to put in here, Nick?
Would you do number, message,
Number,
bracket?
next. Let's give that a shot. Uh-oh, I think I need to make this colon.
Symbol.
Let's give that a look. Hey! I like cheesy poofs, you like cheesy poofs. Without cheesy poofs, we'd be lame. That's how he sings it. Sweet. That is exactly right. So did that kind of help clear up what map is and why we would use it?
Yeah.
I have a quick question while you're on that. If you wanted to combine those all into one line, would you do number, message, dot?
You could do a dot join
Okay.
and then join them by a space maybe.
Okay.
Yep. So dot join just joins the different characters of an array. By the way, something about puts is it only outputs text. So if you notice here, it's showing a bunch of different lines. It doesn't really show an array. If you want to get more information, you could do either PP or P will show you different. It prints a little bit differently. So here this prints a little more like an array. So now you can see that this is actually an array and not a bunch of lines. It's a little bit more clear on what's going on. That's just a little nugget of information. Cool. All right.
So that one would just be player.
So what
Number,
lines
right?
of code? Tell me exactly what to change. And in general, I want all y'all to practice this skill of like, hey, let me call out some lines of code like that I can see on this screen. Because like learning how to communicate this stuff over Zoom is important, especially since when you're looking for jobs, you're probably gonna have to do that too. So why don't you try calling out by line what you want me to change to what?
So just take out 46 and 47, and you can take out the pry too, so 45. And then on 45, just do player brackets number colon.
Cool. And is anything wrong about this?
There's an extra end.
There's an extra end. And you want to know, there's two things that make this a dead giveaway. And one of them I only get because of good coding practices. This thing obviously is linted. This, when you see something highlighted under, that's called a linter. So this is linting and it's telling me I fucked something up. Cool. The other thing that I know it's off is because if I properly indent my code, then since a do statement starts on here, then I should expect the end on the same tab. And since there's no block here that matches with the end, I know that this thing is off.
Is the linter a plugin thing, or does a VS already automatically?
It is. It's actually a little weird with Ruby. So I'm going to suggest maybe don't get the linter right now, but it's called RuboCop. It's just going to annoy the shit out of you if you get it for now. Because to configure it kind of takes some time. It's annoying for me to configure, and I've been programming for a year, so.
Okay.
Awesome. So now let's see if this still passes our test. Okay. What, by the way, what is the thing that this whole function returns?
An array of player numbers.
Yeah. So sometimes I like to think of, oh, okay, all of this is like one thing. And since this is the last thing in here, then this is what this function will return. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. Let's go ahead and see if we fucked up. Excuse me. I just mid-talk burped and then announced it. It passes. And isn't this a lot cleaner than before? And guess what? If we really want to, we can make this cleaner. See how we just make a variable here? Well, okay. We could start with this. And then I could also go to the beginning here and just delete that. And that should still work. Bam! I don't know how to dab. Otherwise, I would have dabbed there. Something like that. Yeah. So that's kind of cool, right? Like this is a lot cleaner to look at, right? And now I can look at this pretty easily and be like, oh, okay, this gets me the team. And then this gets me the players to the team. And then, okay, now I just want to transform it. So if I have an array of players, the thing that I get out of it is the player number. To me, and maybe it's not immediately like this to you, to me that's a lot easier to read than a for loop, which has an array, builds on that array, and goes through. Sweet. Awesome. Cool. All right. Next one, player stats. How are we going to refactor this? I'm going to call on Steve. Why is your name Julia Roma? Julia?
Oh, sorry. This is my roommate's computer.
I was like, is that your stage name? Is that your
No,
rap name?
It'd be a good one though.
Awesome. Cool. Do you want to answer this? What would you do to get the player stats?
Okay. Sorry, I'm muted. I feel like we don't have to use each, right? Like,
yeah, what do you think we would use? What are we doing here? What's like the data type going in? What is the data type going into this?
all right, let me, I have a hard time like doing this in my head. So let me pull up the data structure.
It's okay. While you do that, I'm going to go grab my coffee because I need it.
Right on. Okay, so player stats, we're taking in one player. Okay, yeah, so we have a hash going in. And then we
Is
need
it a hash going in?
oh no, it's the player's name, right?
That's what I would think. I actually don't know. It could be a hash going in. And the truth is that this is part of like why it's really important to name variables in a way that makes sense. Because here they put a player. I don't think that this is a hash going in, but the fact that it's called a player and not like a player name or something like that.
It should be player name based on the original instructions.
Now, if I didn't know what it was, there's a few ways I could solve this. I could probably look in the specs, right? So this is something that might be worth looking into. Hashketball set. So I could go to Hashketball specs and look for, let's see, player stats. So if I just do a command F and look up player stats. This will maybe tell me what's going on here. So let's see. Player stats. Oh, I think that's the answer. Wow, that's hilarious. Oh, man. That's so funny. They gave us the answer there. Don't look at it. So expect. Oh, this is so weird. This is a weird. Don't look at these tests. These are never.
We want to use dot find.
Yeah, ignore what I just said. Yes, you do want to use dot find. That's correct. But let's identify the first thing first. Let's do this with a binding dot pry. So I want to just see what a player is, right? So I am going to run learn and type in player once it hits. And I'm stuck on line 49. Cool. Because somewhere in there it invoked that thing. So I'm going to type in player now. And hey, it is indeed a name. Now, I could have just taken your word for it and trusted you, but I don't trust anyone. No, the truth is I wanted to walk through what the process was like of debugging something like this, because while watching me code was great, I think one of the things that you maybe lose out on is I have a bunch of foresight as far as what's going on that y'all don't have. That's why I could check stuff quicker. It's because I've done this a million times, right? Y'all don't have that. So sometimes I like to walk through the thought process of determining this stuff. And that's kind of how I determine that. But yeah, we're going to use a dot find. How does a dot find? Steve, can you explain to me what a dot find does in your own words?
Yeah, so dot find will iterate through whatever it is that you're iterating through. In this case, it's going to be like an array of hashes, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So and then it's just gonna, so yeah, that's your block parameter, right? Like that's like each individual element in your array, individual hash. And then the next bit is going to be some kind of logic, right? So for find, it's going to be like.
Let me refine this question.
Right.
What does dot find spit out if you input everything correctly? What is it going to spit out?
It's going to give you the first thing that meets the condition.
It's going to get beautiful. That's exactly what I'd want to hear someone say. So dot find gives you the first thing that meets the condition that you return. So that means that the first time everything inside of here evaluates to true. Let's rewrite this. Let's do a dot find here. And then we're just going to rewrite this. So this is actually going to be for each player, and we're going to change this to player name. So that way that is not in conflict there. Okay. So what he just said is exactly what a dot find does. The first condition that returns as truthy, this whole thing becomes that player that you're on at that given moment. Let's hop over to our little enumerables thingy going on here, right? So I want to, actually we could do this, right? So let's say we want to find the first one that says without cheesy poofs, right? How am I going to do that? And let's not call this doubled array anymore. Let's call this without cheesy poofs. Whoops. Cool. What's my enumerable going to be here?
Find.
Cool. What's this thing going to be? We'll just call it a message object for now. That's a confusing question. Or message hash. Nice. And then what am I going to return here? Any thoughts?
You could do message hash dot include question mark parentheses. Without cheesy poofs.
That-
So say
That is close.
it's
What
yeah,
is
I'm trying to remember.
What does dot include work on? What type of data structure does dot include work on? Let's look it up. String. So this is checking to see if a string includes a phrase. And you could do it on an array. But we just asked if this hash includes that. Do you think that's going to work?
No.
Nah. So what we maybe could do is message hash. What would I have to add here? If it works on a string, how do I pull out a string from message hash?
Could you do 2s dot 2 underscore s?
Nope. How do I pull? What data type is a message hash? I'll give you a hint. It's in the name.
The hash.
Okay. And where is the string inside of my message hash? It's stored in a key value pair. What's the key to that key value pair?
Message.
Yeah, so I have to index it out first.
Oh, okay.
So first I have to index out message.
I
And
think you have to do the colon, right?
what?
Do you have to do a colon for that one? Or
Oh yeah, you're right. All right, let's see what this runs. Hey, it worked. It found the first hash that met that condition. Now that being said, you also could have done this with, if you're going to use dot include, typically, here, I'm going to comment this out, but typically the reason why you would do dot include would be, oh, shit balls. Typically the reason why you would do dot include would be so that way you don't have to actually check the whole message. So watch this. If you wanted to, you can do a, let's say we just wanted to search for without. So now it'll still find that one. So now what it finds is the first one that includes without. But if I just wanted to search whether that whole message was equal, what I would have done is I would have compared the message, right, to the desired message. And now I'd find the same thing.
and what's the difference
Oh,
between
shit.
the triple equals and the double equals?
Oh, it's never mind. This should not be a triple equals.
Oh, okay.
That is a JavaScript thing.
Okay.
I fucked up because I've been doing JavaScript. I do JavaScript way more often than Ruby these days. So that's just why. There is no triple equals in Ruby. In JavaScript, there's an important distinction between triple equals and double equals that we won't talk about today. Good question, though. Yeah, there's only one way to compare two things with equal signs. I mean, you could also do it does not equal, which would just be like,
Just like a bang before the double equals,
Yep.
or
no, it would actually just be bang equals.
bang equals. Okay.
Yep.
Because bang equals is just essentially like equivalent, right? Not equivalent.
Yeah, but that brings me to a good question. What would I get here right now? What do we think of this would return and why?
Would it just equal, I like cheesy poofs, you like cheesy poofs, we'd be lame?
Why?
Um,
Defend yourself.
Because you don't want to include without cheesy poofs. So essentially it's returning everything
What does
that
dot
doesn't
find
include.
do? I want you to reiterate that definition that we came up with on what dot find
Oh,
does.
okay. So
What-
it iterates when it finds the first condition that meets the criteria, it returns that condition.
It doesn't return the condition. It returns the message. In this case, it returns the message hash where this returns true. The first
Okay.
one. So what is this going to return?
Nil?
Nil?
Oh, no.
Which is
Oh, it's going to return. I like cheesy poos.
Yep. Why though? Now I want you to say why, because you said that the first time, and now I want you to give a better answer. So
Okay, it's just going to return cheesy poos because that's the first condition that meets the
it's
condition.
not without cheesy poofs.
Yeah.
Bam. Y'all ready for the difference between dot find and dot filter? Because it's really easy to show. The only difference between dot filter and dot find is that dot find returns the first one, dot filter returns all of them. Oh, you know what? Dot filter might not work in Ruby. It depends on which version of Ruby you're in. Dot filter does not always work in Ruby. The original one that Ruby chose was dot select, and then other languages use dot filter, so Ruby incorporated dot filter into it. So some versions of Ruby, dot filter will work. Other versions, it won't. I usually use dot select in Ruby, but I was kind of like winging it, so I was like, fuck it, let's see what happens. But a dot find and a dot select, the only difference is now it's going to return all of the message hashes where their message is not without cheesy poofs. So
Could you use a find all on that too?
Yep, find all works the same.
Is find all and reject the same too? Or
Oh shit, this should be, I don't know what reject is, but maybe.
I think it's just the same as select, basically.
Totally could be. There we go.
So is it safe to say that find will pretty much only ever return one thing for you? Always?
Unless the thing that you're returning, so unless you have an array of arrays, that's totally plausible, right? Like let's say in this array, I have an array of arrays. So that means if I find one of those arrays, it's still an array. Does that make sense? But it's going,
Yeah, I think so.
If I'm iterating over this, right, it's always going to find one of whatever these things are. So if these things happens to be arrays, then yes, it could return an array, but it's not going to be an array of the same nest like depth, if that makes sense. I just made up that term. I hope it's right. I bet it exists somewhere. Cool. Nice. How'd that feel? How'd that explanation feel? Fist to 5. 5? Oh my God. Oh my gosh. I'm glad about that. Sweet. Awesome. All right. So what am I going to do here now? How am I going to find the player object, the player hash, where that player, their name equals the player name that I input into this method? How am I going to do that?
Is it player and then square bracket players and then double equals player name?
Player, square bracket, you're saying players,
Mm-hmm.
double
And-
equals player name. This is double equals, by the way. You see how it's a little longer? That's just because I have a cool font in VS Code. That's all.
I think that's it.
Let's see if it works. And then is my function done?
Yes.
Okay, let's see what happens. Give that a save. Run learn. Boom, we failed. I kind of knew we would fail, but that's okay. It's better to see the red. Awesome. Let's talk about why. Here's what I'm going to do. We're going to pop. There's a couple things we have to fix, but first we're going to fix one thing at a time. We're going to pop a binding.pry in here, and I am just going to click up on there. Bam. We're going. Bam, we're in a binding.pry. Awesome. Sweet. So we're here. And now, what do we expect player to be?
Is it a list of all the players' data?
Yeah, so player is going to equal actually not a list of all the players' data, because what is all the players' data? That's a different variable that we have access to right now. What variable is that? Let's look at what player is right now. Player looks like it's one player, and it's Alan Anderson. What is the significance of that? Why is this the first one that pops up?
Because it found the first player.
Right. So it didn't find anything. I wouldn't use the word find, right? What it did was we have this players array, and when you iterate over it, you iterate starting from the first one going to the last one. So we're going to keep iterating until we find the thing that we want, but we just happen to be in the first one right now. That's where our binding.pry got stuck. So we're in that first iteration right now.
Question for you, John. If you hit Command D here and then reran it or reran players, would that return you the next
see
one?
Reggie Evans next.
Okay, that's how that works, right?
Ready?
Okay.
It's actually Control D, not Command D.
Oh, Control D.
Oh, here, ready? Control D. Bam. I'm going to look up player right now. Let's see if I was right. Reggie Evans. Bam. Because it just went on to the next one. Make sense? Cool. All right. So we know what player is. What do we think players is? If I press enter, what am I going to get?
All the players.
All players. Looks good. Looks right. Okay. And let's test out this line of code. What is player indexed at players right now going to return? Let's look at what our current object is. If this is what player is, what is this indexed at players going to be? Paul?
I think nil.
Nil, exactly. Sorry about that, Marnie. It was like that was like a Zoom timing thing. I'll get you next. All right. So if that's nil, is this ever going to not return nil? If this iterates through all of these players, do any of these players have a key of players on there? So that's why this code is not running, because we're never returning true, so we're never finding anything. Does that make sense? Awesome. All right. Marnie, how would you refactor this?
So rather than have players in the brackets, you should have player name.
Yeah, I like it. But let's test it in here first. So I'm going to type in player, and then we'll do player name, and then we'll see if that's equal to player name. Bam, and I got false. So if I get false, what happens? First of all, should I have gotten false or should I have gotten true? Like, do I want to get false on Reggie Evans or do I want true on Reggie Evans?
You want false so it iterates over the next item.
Exactly. I want false because what's my player name that I actually input into, whoops. What's my player name that I actually put into this function? Well, if the player name that I actually put into this function, right, is Jeff Adrian, well, Jeff Adrian isn't Reggie Evans. It shouldn't be true, right? It should be false. So let's see. Let's see if we can iterate through here. We're just going to test out player name again. Oh, so now I'm sorry. We're going to test out player at player name. So we know that all of these are going to iterate to false, right? I'm going to go out again. We're going to control D it. Oh, bam. We're on Jason Terry. Bam. We're on Jeff Adrian now. Cool. So now if I type in that same line of code, which I can just scroll up in here to look and find, I get true now. Hooray. So what does that mean? That means that this iteration stops and this whole term is going to become this block variable. Does that make sense? Awesome. So let's go ahead and test it out. See if it works now. Moment of truth. Give this a save. Nice. What did I just do? Hope I didn't fuck anything up. Uh-oh, I messed something up. I got nil. What did I do wrong?
You have to update the player name hash.
Right. I didn't even do that. That was silly. Player name. And by the way, this is still not going to pass. But we'll talk about why in a second. Oh, actually, no, it will pass. I lied. I think it'll pass. It might not. Yeah, it passed. Cool. Sweet. What did I do here? Hold up. What's going on? What's wrong with that? I don't see why that's linted. Hold up. I got to figure out what's going on here. Let's see. Something's going on here. What is... Am I missing a comma somewhere? Comma. Comma, 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 comma. Why is that? Sorry, I just want to check what that's saying. This is in game hash, and this is on line 50. Huh. I don't know why that's broken right now. We're just going to ignore it because I think it's working. Because truth be told, if I run learn and it works, it's working. This is kind of what I was talking about. I've experienced like a little bit of bugginess with that whole Rubo cop thing. Let's see if I was right. If everything breaks, then maybe there's something wrong that I just didn't catch. Oh yeah, see, something did break. What did I just... Oh, was it that? It was just that. Yep, it was a comma. And now I have no problems. Cool. All right, sweet. All right, so there was an actual error. Sorry about that. That was a little bit of a tangent. I accidentally pressed a button that I shouldn't have. Cool. So now I'm here. That did exactly what we wanted. Cool. All right, awesome. What time is it? You know what? We could continue this refactor, but at this point, we've gone over .find and .map, and I feel like y'all would be better off giving it a shot yourselves. So, like, actually try, get those fingers on the keyboard, program this yourself. Is there another class coming up at 11? There is. There's classes and objects, isn't there? Okay, go to that. But at some point today, I want y'all to try and do this yourself. Okay, so give that a shot. Maybe not during lunch, but maybe like after the enumerables lesson or whatever. So give it a shot. All right, cool.
All right, thanks, John.
Pay attention during that
Thank you.
classes and objects class. It's super
John.
important. All right, later, y'all.
Thank you.
Have a good one.